After almost a decade, one of the biggest mysteries of the Boruto series has finally been solved, as we now know for a fact that why Kawaki couldn't shrink his sword with the sukona hikona. Boruto has asked Sumire to amp up his sword with her research, which would create a technique that doesn't exist in the world yet, a brand new power that could give his sword the aura to defeat Jura as well as Kawaki, and it's only because of this upcoming amplification that Kawaki couldn't simply shrink his blade in the future. The enhancement process will begin shortly, as Boruto had handed over a secret scroll to Sumire, which holds the key to a never before seen power. But before we move on to what this power is going to be, like would it only amp the sword to make it deal more damage than usual and protecting it from shrinking, or will it be somewhat of a sealing jutsu which would help Boruto to jeopardize his opponent? More importantly, what's the secret behind the scrolls that he has handed over to Sumire? Do they belong to Orochimaru that Boruto found by Koji's help, or is it something that Momoshiki advised him to do based on the recent events? Well, all of that will be answered, but first take a look at this scene from episode 1, where Boruto can be seen flexing both his sword and the Jogan in front of Kawaki. Notice how both of these powers are associated with Sumire. In the anime, it was the chakra of New Way which led the Jogan's premature awakening, and now when you look at how the sword is also amped by her, the dots seem to connect pretty well. Sumire is a vital anchor in Boruto's fate, not just because she informed Sarada about omnipotence, but also due to her active participation in making Boruto stronger. So what exactly was the scroll that Boruto gave her, and how could the enhancement of the blade change the future? Well, let's jump to this sequence of chapter 27, where Boruto appeared to meet Sumire. When she runningly gets out of Aida's house, she encounters Boruto at the door, who had seemingly been waiting for her. Sumire catches his sight as Boruto greets her and then takes out the sword that he amps up with his chakra. He then starts to explain what he is doing by referring to this technique as Uchiha sword style, cloaked sword, where you coat the blade with chakra constantly to prevent it from getting dull or chipped. He then reveals that he only let his guard down once, leading to the sword getting nicked by Jura. Further, he asks Sumire to fix it by the end of this week, which refers to the time period before the strike of Mamushi. He then takes out a scroll from his pocket that he hands over to Sumire. Upon taking a look at the scroll, she quickly realizes that this technique doesn't exist in this world yet, and Boruto confirms that by adding it lies out at the end of the research that she is currently conducting. Eventually, she will figure it out by herself. Boruto then tells her that's all he can reveal right now, which then leads us to Sumire's response. She tells Boruto that by using this skill to fix the blade, it would essentially become an entirely different thing. So would he be okay with it? Boruto replies by saying it will become a stronger blade, and even his master must be okay with it as well. I love how he's so optimistic with Sasuke's return, which might even be a hint that Hidari would finally get defeated by Sarada, after which they would retrieve Sasuke from the Shinju tree. And this conversation between both of them answers a lot of questions as well, like why Boruto's sword in the future is not chipped. It's actually because he will get it fixed before that fight. And this only makes me wonder how long will it take for the prologue event to finally happen. Kawaki not using his Kokugan to shrink the sword also makes sense, as the modification could have made the blade unshrinkable as well. So could this be the most awaited manga debut of New? I feel like so because Boruto tells Sumire that the technique has something to do with what she's currently researching, which means the research was going on from some time now. But the question remains, what could it be about? Well, in the anime, Sumire was able to manipulate her dark chakra into creating a snake, and that snake could absorb other people's chakra for itself. So what if she uses the same dark chakra to amplify the blade of Boruto? Now that would not only make Boruto much more powerful, but would also increase the importance of Sumire in the plot, cause the way Boruto would use that blade could mimic the dynamics of Naruto's Baryon mode, and here is why I think so. If you think about it, Kawaki somehow replicates the destiny of Ishiki or Suzuki, since both of them are the wielders of the same power, thanks to the karma. So Kawaki's defeat being similar to how Ishiki was defeated shouldn't be out of question if the authors are trying to create a symbolism. On top of that, the defeat of Jura could also have a symbolic meaning. It could take place the same way the Ten Tails was exploited by Jogan in part 1, and that is through chakra absorption. The Journal Ten Tails was a huge source of chakra for Jogan to amp himself up, and while it doesn't mean that this process made him any weaker, since the Ten Tails are already humongous blobs of chakra, so Boruto's sword using the mechanics of Naruto's Baryon mode to defeat both Kawaki and Jura kinda makes a lot of sense. As I said earlier, Sumire's dark chakra can absorb another person's chakra, and when you look at how Baryon mode was used to defeat Ishiki, it works on a similar principle. It not only boosts boosted Naruto's power, but also consumed his and Ishiki's chakra simultaneously. The process converted their combined chakra directly into raw life force energy, which burned away at Ishiki's remaining lifespan every time their chakras made contact. Essentially, it was a mutual annihilation type of reaction, just like nuclear fusion, that drained Ishiki from the inside out. So if the dark chakra amped blade of Boruto were to mimic the same parasitic absorption, it wouldn't just steal chakra, but it could actively erode the opponent's life force with every clash, just like how Baryon mode ended Ishiki, despite Naruto being outmatched in power. For Jura, it will be a symbolic sort of defeat if Boruto's sword could land a number of massive hits on him, as it would mimic the time when Jogan used to take his chakra to make himself stronger. Kawaki, on the other hand, if he would be defeated by some blows of the blade, would succumb to a fate similar to Ishiki, as he tragically got weakened by a similar chakra stealing ability. What's even more interesting is that her power seems to be a fusion of natural ninjutsu and advanced scientific techniques. That's likely why she's studying under Amado. Also, the powerful seal on her back was created through artificial ninjutsu. It's as if she's meant to become the bridge between traditional chakra arts and modern scientific innovation. So could this be a confirmation for the sealing technique of New to be the main ingredient behind Boruto's stronger blade? The yokai of Sumire was on the anime canon till now, on top of getting mentioned in one of those manga trading cards. So maybe the anime and this honorable mention was teasing the actual role of Sumire and New, which will take place in the upcoming arc. In the Boruto anime, particularly episode 1 to 15, the Jogan first manifests in Boruto's right eye during his encounters with mysterious possessions that were plaguing Konoha. These incidents are revealed to stem from Sumire's summoned New, a chimeric spirit beast created through her father's experiments with Hashirama Senju's cells and artificial ninjutsu. New's dark chakra originates from its pocket dimension, causing possessions and chakra disruptions. Moreover, Boruto's Jogan activates involuntarily while sensing this dark chakra, allowing him to perceive invisible chakra flows, weak points in New, and even interdimensional portals. Now jumping to the current events of the manga, where Sumire's involvement is powering up Boruto's blade with the dark chakra has become plausible. By coating Boruto's sword with it, Sumire might unknowingly create the very same reaction that triggered the Jogan's awakening years ago. Only this time the effect won't be limited, as it would be magnified through combat and battles. This would turn out to be one of the biggest foreshadowings in this series. While the dark chakra activated the Jogan in the anime in the need of the hour, the manga could take a collaborative turn between Sumire and Boruto to bring the pure eye to life. Let me know in the comments if you have any theories for a dedicated video on this topic. Now let's dive into another theory for how exactly this enhancement of the blade is going to work out. In the same chapter, we see Amado identifying the roots that Jura summoned as a part of the god tree. This means they are actively doing research on the sentient entails. And when you look at how Kawaki cannot shrink living objects with sukona hikona, what if Sumire is somehow going to make the blade sentient by using the research that she is doing with Amado? It would not only explain how Boruto can confidently use it in the future, but would also give us a hint for why it didn't chip even before the time skip battle. So Sumire doing the experiment to make the sword sentient or have its own consciousness or chakra is also a huge possibility. The next speculation again brings up the Momoshiki and Kama coordination of the blade. What if the never before seen modification that Sumire will do to Boruto's blade would allow him to smoothly integrate the sword with his Kama seal? In other words, it could allow him to use it similar to how Kinshiki manifested chakra weapons to fight his opponents. The dark chakra integration, which stems from the Otsutsuki dimension, could theoretically make Boruto combine the powers of the Kama and the sword, which could lead to a perfect synchronization of abilities. Now let's get to the most interesting part, which would make the boundary between the anime and the manga appear blurry. What if the scroll that Boruto passed down to Sumire is actually some research on New, which was supposed to be unveiled in the future? But thanks to Kashin Koji's prescience, they are able to use the early information in making Boruto's weapon stronger than ever. Sumire has shown to perform a lot of feats in the anime with the dark chakra of New. It helped her to open a dimensional portal, absorb the chakra of others, strengthen the fishing rod of Boruto, summon New in battle, share chakra with her allies, seal the core of New in her left palm, and she even commanded New to take her chakra. If all these mystical properties of New's chakra are transferred to Boruto's blade, then he would inevitably become the strongest swordsman of the shinobi world. Not to mention, chapter 27 ends by showing the invasion of Mamushi on Konoha, so maybe we will not be getting the behind the scenes for how exactly Sumire amped the sword of Boruto, but the powers it will inherit would definitely reveal the true source of enhancement, and if it's actually the dark chakra of New or some scientific specific power up. Then there are some afterthoughts on this as well. Like Sumire will need to go to Amaru's lab to enhance the sword, and Kawaki is right there waiting for a power boost. So when Sumire enters the lab to fulfill her job, it could be that Kawaki would ask her to do the same amplification on his staff if he is actually that obsessed with getting easy power boosts. Now let's move on to your thoughts and theories on Boruto's enhanced blade. The first comment comes from Scott Ivory, who believes that the blade of Boruto will be metal, but it will be covered in chakra to protect it from serious damage. Well, that's definitely something which can happen, as Boruto himself mentioned that when he lost focus, the sword got chipped. So now he will need a solution where the sword will not break, even if he loses his gaze for a bit. And for that to happen, he could have a never extinguishing layer of chakra on it that would never die down. But as we could see in the first episode, the sword appears to be completely normal, but when the blade and the staff strike, they create a blue and red effect, which very likely comes from the impact of the strike between the chakra amped weapons. So while it wouldn't be an always on chakra mode, it could definitely have a special effect when it strikes another object. Next up, we have a question from Claudius McQueen, who's curious if it will become a chakra blade or whether the metal properties will remain. Well, my friend, I think it will become more of a chakra infused blade rather than becoming a pure chakra blade. Again pinpointing to the prologue, where the sword doesn't seem to emit any chakra and looks like any ordinary katana. But the real deal lies within, as Sumire must have enhanced it to make the sword more powerful, on top of creating something which is purely new for this world. So here is what I think may be happening. It could be that after the blade is enhanced, Boruto's sword will naturally be able to mold chakra to create different abilities, something that is impossible to do with a normal blade, simply because no one has amped their weapon in this way before. And if it actually turns out to be the dark chakra, then it's a no-brainer for Boruto to wield the strongest weapon in the world. If it was supposed to be a new chakra blade, then it would have been more convenient for him to create it from scratch, instead of giving away his original blade for enhancement. If you are interested in more such theories, make sure to check out these videos right now, and I will see you next time.